Picking up from where we left off, let's go into now the exclusive private questions. Thank you again for joining us in the spaces, but then also thank you for doing this here. So getting into the first question, we recently saw kind of a shock, an explosion, or an eruption of sort from DeepSeek, this new AI model from China. It was cheaper, it was faster. I used it. It felt more intuitive, more knowledgeable than what I had previously used from ChatGPT, and even Perplexity to some degree. In other areas, I still found Perplexity better, but still, it was pretty remarkable. Regardless, you guys like literally integrated DeepSeek with Agent before I saw anyone else talking about it. How did you guys see it? Is it because you have connections in China, you're paying attention to the Chinese market, and do you use that as a leverage to some degree? And where do you kind of see the competition between China and America with AI and so forth? I know that's a lot, but
I noticed the DeepSeek, I think like almost one and a half years ago. That's a very long time ago. Yeah. Uh,
what? Okay.
yes, yes. So I think this is sometimes this is a benefit that it be people that different language, right? For example, I constantly scan all the news in English and also Chinese, right? So that's definitely an advantage that different languages. Um, so the DeepSeek has been come inside. I think at least like 1.5 years ago, when the large language model is is booming up, and there is a lot of Chinese companies are also doing the large language model. DeepSeek is at that time is basically they're like underdog, right? So it's nobody. There's people talking about this company. Say, hey, shoot, there's this company that is also kind of like a player, but most of the people, honestly, in the industry are actually looking down to them because they're not big names. They don't have this kind of VIP entrepreneurs, and but they already impressed the world or the small community. Like 1 years ago, because their large language model is super fast and it's especially extremely cheap. It's way much cheaper. It's like a 10% of others, even, but their model's quality is not the best at the time. Um, yeah, so that's why I know them because I constantly believe that the large language model going to be cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, faster, and also be able to be local, right? So this is the trend that I believed. Like 1 years ago, people always thinking, especially I believe that OpenAI, their model is try to we build this kind of a gigantic, super, computing power center, and then so we're moving, so nobody can compete with us, not only because the technology is also because we own this kind of gigantic computing center that nobody can pay for that, right? We also have a lot of those data we already processed for many years ahead. So even you have a better algorithm, but you don't have this data. I heard this kind of in the past, even in the internet age, there are people say, "Hey, why Google is going to lead? Because not only because their technology, it's also because they already own all of those data. If you are going to kind of redo that, even you're smarter, you have more money, you have technology, you're not going to catch up because they already years ahead of this data." But I think this is a miss. This is a miss because once you have a new type of new generation technology, right? New generation way to do things. Um, competing with this kind of a new technology is basically like nothing. No matter how many years, how many hundreds years you have be. Imagine right today if you were building like an army. I just read the news that Elon Musk is talking to the West Point. He said that in the future the war is not fighted by this today's like jet with human. It's actually fighted by the AI and all this kind of drones, right? So I think this is absolutely right. This is exactly like today. If you have if you have advanced today's weapons, you want to fighting with these armies with horses, right? So no matter how big your army is, it's basically like nothing compared to the like a different generations of the technology, right? So for the AI, I think I believe last year the Biden administration what they want to kind of um, deal with China is basically they limit the GPUs, limit all those kind of access to this, right? So I think the background of the DeepSeek is as a Chinese company, not with the most of the funding, not with the top talent and star and VIP founders, but with just a kind of a team that have decent money and decent technology, and they also have a lot of the kind of restriction from the access into the most advanced computing powers. So there is no choice for them. They have to focus on finding out some new way, right? The new way that they are using is not something new. They're instead of kind of try to find a secret weapon, they use a public weapon, which is open source, right? So they just open source everything. They keep researching, they do open source everything, and they show all of this to the public. That um, um, I believe this is I think what really impacted to the to the whole large language model and the AI industry. I think one of the I forgot who said that, but I think that's correct. This is actually not the win or fail about China vs United States. It's about open source vs closed source, right? Usually, as American, as the United States, we are always represented the high tech, and always the more important, we are represented the freedom, represent the openness, right? So, but this time, this is the first time I think in history, especially in tech industry, like American companies are represent closed source, represent that we are not that open. We keep secret, right? We just depends on our computing power. But a Chinese company from nowhere, and actually are nobody, use open source technology to improve the algorithm, improve the way to to prove to the world that um, the the new algorithm, the new technology can actually take over, can actually beat those guys with a closed technology, right? So this is actually not a win, Chinese vs American. This is the win about the open source vs closed source, right? So this is, I think, this is quite meaningful. So the DeepSeek itself, I think the model they're making a lot of improvement. Honestly, I still think the DeepSeek model is not actually a threat. Is not really a threat for OpenAI for companies in US, and it still has a lot of limitations. So so they just represent the way that they can do this with a very limited resources, and they also open source the whole technology, and this technology can be taken by any company, include the any company in the world. You can use this technology. This is exactly like in the past that when US company open source something, and then a Chinese company can take the open source technology and improve it, and then
Hmm.
eventually some of them even win. Um, so I think this is just the same thing. It's just this time is original from that company. And the DeepSeek model itself is not that magic. Uh, so we supported it just because we find that in the V3 version, it's not only still very cheap, but also with decent quality. But if you really want to use that model to create applications, um, so for some certain tasks, still I think still believes the OpenAI or Llama mode, Llama from Meta AI is sometimes is still better. But some certain tasks, DeepSeek is better. For example, writing in some Chinese. If you want to write something in Chinese, DeepSeek is better. That's purely because DeepSeek's training data from the DeepSeek are more localized with Chinese materials.
No, 100%. I appreciate you kind of elaborating and giving us, I don't know, like a multi-aspect view of it. What is it? I kind of remember reading just a little bit ago that the release of DeepSeek was supposed to be like the Sputnik moment in the Cold War or this new Cold War between America and China. And so I feel like sometimes those things are overextended or overhyped. And at the same
Definitely,
time,
super overhyped, and I think the media. Honestly, I really don't like a lot of those media. They just want to kind of creating this. For example, I think the news yesterday or say that some kind of new research groups only recreated DeepSeek with $50.
Yeah.
If you read this title, you said, "What? The AI has been so cheap." But if you
Hmm.
carefully read what it exactly say and how they calculate this $50, it's like completely bullshit, right? So it's not reflect anything. But the media's are they're really like these kind of surprising numbers.
Oh, that's the media for you. If anything, that's the problem here in America is kind of like what you were saying, is some of the things that for decades we've been against, we've somehow found ourselves the biggest proponents of. So we've been, for open source, and then we weirdly found ourselves being very closed off. We are, eager to be innovative, eager to let people build, and then at the same time pushing building and kind of restricting us from building kind of more so in America, you could say. But it seems like you could say for the last 20 years, we've just been hypocrites. What usually is our standard and our ideal that we've presented to the world, we've kind of backtracked on a little bit. Hopefully, the new Trump administration is able to make some kind of like changes with that. I feel like personally, as an American, it's just we've been too much drinking the left Kool-Aid, and the left Kool-Aid has made us like dazed to some degree. And so everyone's in like an extreme hysteria, and the media adds to the hysteria. So it's really cool to kind of, what is it, get a more grounded view, and you can provide that. So we definitely appreciate that 100%. What is it? I kind of just speaking on AI because here recently, I've been watching more like Palantir videos. Palantir is a company I've been focusing on for a little while now. Actually, before I jumped to that, I heard somebody tweet out the other day that how you mentioned DeepSeek is an underdog or was an underdog, and they just came out and they ultimately, with not the same resources and GPUs, so to speak, but they hit the target. Somebody was like, just wait until the Chinese Bitcoin comes out and it's a total scarce supply. They're just pumping out applications left and right. No one will see it coming. And I was like, this guy just predicted ArcBlock. ArcBlock is going to be the Web3 DeepSeek underdogs, and then out of nowhere, you guys just pop off. But getting back to Palantir, I know I'm all over the place. I heard Alex Karp say that the ultimate battle for AI also will kind of be in the application front, where a lot of people are betting big on the LLMs, but not too many people are betting on the application aspects of AI. But I feel like ArcBlock is totally a company trying to create tools that take these LLMs and then actually allow you to build apps. Would you say you kind of hold the same view where, yes, these LLMs are great, but they're only good insofar as they produce unique, innovative apps, and outside of that, we like, what are we doing? How would you look at that?
Yeah, exactly. So our block. So when the large language model coming out, so I think I'm one belongs one of the batch of the people that thinking that the most of the opportunities are in lie in the applications, not just the models. I think this is also because the DNAs of your teams, right? For some teams who your DNA is do the research and do the algorithm and the training in those models, and you definitely should, there's so working on the model itself probably is the smartest thing to do. But for the team, but not everybody should just jump in to do the one thing because uh, so I believe that the application side has a lot more opportunities for the people. And if you look at the history, it's similar. I think if you compare to like large language model technology, right? It's kind of like it's like blockchain, right? So it's like Ethereum, like Bitcoins, but Ethereum and Bitcoin they're just one blockchain. But what really make this kind of whole things is application built on top of that, right? You can imagine all of those kind of new coins, even the meme coins. You can treat that as one sort of a small, very simple small applications. It's not because Ethereum was there, so Ethereum become, dominated world. It's actually the applications dominated world, and because there's applications dominated world, and then the blockchain itself. Like in the early days, is like database, right? It's every single application is a database application, but there's only a few of those companies who are creating database. You don't need a you don't need a million of the database companies, and you only need probably 5 or 10 of them. But you need a millions different applications that are using database, right?
Mm,
So those are, I think those are exactly the same. The history is just a kind of repeating the same pattern again and again, and I believe the large language model, the AI models, and the bright future is all on the application side. Only a
gotcha.
few of the only very few of the model company going to survive. Unfortunately, most of those model company will eventually fail, no matter how much money they burned, and no
Mhm.
matter how much effort they have spent on the research, and most of them are going to fail. And only a few winners. But the applications built on top of them are endless.
So, if anything, what you were mentioning, which I kind of thought was interesting, you said that only a few kind of real large language models are going to survive, even if they have an unprecedented amount of money, to just burn. With that being said, what do you think is going to be the secret sauce? Like, what's going to make one LLM model dominate another? Is it going to be because you kind of were just saying a lot of people were like, hey, it's going to be the data. You're not going to be able to match us with the data. And then here's DeepSeek coming in and saying, well, we don't really need to match you with the data. We can go this route. So, what do you think from your perspective right now is like you need to get this pinned down, and whoever pins this down is going to be the winner?
Is for those kind of foundational technology is really hard to to find out who is going to eventually be the winners. And I think I think the to honestly I would say to become a winner, you need to survive. The biggest challenge that you need to survive is survive of the time, right? So the longer you can stay in the game, the more likely you're going to survive, right? So if you look at the back, yeah, you always see these kind of big players. They have like infinite money. They have a lot of money. They have VIPs. They have shining stars. Um, but um, but over the time, they just vanished. And but instead, some of the companies, some of the team, they they keep doing right. So
Mhm.
from some point, at some certain point, they're nearly died. Their sounds and voice is so small, but they're still there. But then eventually they can come back. So I think I see this constantly, right? Right. For example, in the blockchain industry, so Bitcoin was the first, but imagine how many there are hundreds of different kind of forked Bitcoin clones there. The Litecoin, Doji, Doji is the one survived. But who knew Doji going to survive? Because there's like hundreds of them, right? And Doji coins is kind of created like a joke. They don't have that much money, right? So there's so many companies with a lot more resources, but they cannot last long, right? So I think, for example, like compared back to ArcBlock. So when I doing this, I think one thing that I really care about is shooting for the long term, right? So we really want to win the game of the time, to win the time that survived, right? So I think for most of the technologies, the most value is hey, this technology has been exist, they are survived, and they're good, and also more importantly, they have survived the time for so many years. They proved themselves that they can stay alive, and they can live on the hypes and live on the dark times, but they keep moving forward. And then it's not means that they're going to win, but it means more likely they're going to survive in the longer term, right? So for those large land models, so that said, for most of those large land models, is the future competition is going to be very cruel. Some of
I
the
bet.
names they're probably going to die. So it's how much money they have is basically nothing. It's not the most critical, and uh, looking into their product, as long as they can keep moving forward, and at some certain point, I think for the large language model, eventually at some certain point, especially when DeepSeek open source a lot of things, at a certain point, every large language model going to look almost the same. They're going to be the
Mhm.
same. So that's basically said. to be able to survive. Not the place that is just you hire great people, you have a kind of a super new feature technology you're going to survive because everybody going to eventually catch up. So they're not the best model in the market, but they're the cheapest. Oh, but
Yeah,
now they're not the cheapest anymore because Google just have the new model that is even cheaper, faster. So that's so the game. So this, I think this is a very exciting world that you are. So eventually, I definitely believe somebody else is going to have something even faster and cheaper. So
I'm
that's
sure
great
of
for
it.
the whole industry, right?
No, yeah, it's totally great. Everything kind of races to zero, it's going to be cheaper for us to use it, figure out how we can use it. And really, the more you describe kind of like um, how you see things play out, the more it makes sense how you've structured ArcBlock, to where you're considering the long term. What stuck out to me finding ArcBlock in like 2022 when I did was just recognizing like, hey, this isn't a new token. These guys have been here since 2018 and they're still in the race. Like just because they're dormant, just because it doesn't look like much is happening, they're actually still upgrading the platform, improving their products. And that's what told me immediately, like, don't count these guys out. If anything, these are just underdogs. And so often I feel like people um, don't realize just yet time is the biggest enemy, or you could say the biggest obstacle you got to get over. I mean, Sam Bankman Fried, a month before his collapse, you probably thought this guy's set forever. A month after the collapse, you're like, I mean, wow, this guy's time went out the window. So to some extent, like you kind of emphasize, and I feel like all of life is about surviving, that kind of survival of the fittest. You need to be able to adapt, you need to be able to improve. And in truth, I feel like most companies and teams don't embody that, so it's always cool to hear that you guys are. With that being said, I know, since we're talking about AI, that's the trend of today. What's the trend of tomorrow, Robert? We already see that what is it, or how would I put it? We see that the trend right now is LLMs evolving into applications, and these applications, who knows what they'll be able to do. But what's the trend of tomorrow? AI doing what? Is it what you were already suggesting, where I can locally run AI in my pocket, where each person kind of, has their own like AI strobe bot following around them around from device to device? What is the thing that you think is, kind of right now, obviously not able to be made, but you're recognizing as, a person in your position, you're seeing coming into the future, or coming from the future, so to speak?
I think so the AI has a lot of potentials and it's really hard to predict, right? So all of the potential, but I think something that is up is absolutely is coming and um, mm, uh, closely related to our industry is AI going to replace software engineers and it's going to take
Gotcha.
software engineers work jobs very close. Right. I think I always tell my team, my whole ArcBlock team, think about it. Our job is going to be eliminated by the AI, maybe in 3 years, or five, or at most 5 years. Right. So I actually see this coming like 2 years ago when we beginning to build a large language model. We experimented how to use a large language model to help us to build some software. I think, okay, sure, this is within 5 years, probably we don't need software engineers. I think that's good things. That is a good things because so this is very bad for people who are thinking, okay, I just want to stay with my skills and hopefully I can have food to eat with these skills forever. This unfortunately this is not going to happen, right? The good news is the software industry, software engineers are always these kind of people who are constantly improve, right? So with the new AI technology, that basically means everybody can be a 10x engineers or even 100x engineers. But if you're not planning to be a 10x engineers to take advantage of the AI, your job is going to eliminate it, right? So I remember so somebody said that it's not the AI take your job, is somebody else with the skill to use the AI take your jobs, right? Um, so that's it. In the coming years, building applications going to be extremely easier, and the bar is going to be lower and lower. I think that's great for our blocks whole architect because our block architect whole concept is creating a lot of application components that can be reused, can be recomposed, and but if you're how to compose application, how to deploy those applications, how to configure them, still need some skill set, right? But with AI, so that makes the bar even lower. That basically eventually anybody can basically talk to the AI, and the AI helps them to compose applications. AI helps them to uh, build all of those. So that makes the whole platform even more valuable and important in this kind of a AI world. And yeah,
It's actually smart that you guys are recognizing, like, look, our entire careers are hinging on us being software engineers, but AI is on the way to replace us. So we should build something in anticipation for that. So that's partly what ArcBlock is as well. Like, in a world where even we, top level engineers, like, I'm not referencing me, but yourself, Shinjun, and I'm sure a few other people at the ArcBlock team, you guys are like, okay, well, we got 5 years to build a platform that basically with AI can continue to build itself, almost like a living system or like a living organism. The cells, a part of it, are able to, genetically fix parts that need fixing, and you don't really need to say much to it. So that's super cool that you guys are preparing for that. We literally have 8 minutes, so we're gonna rush. The next question I had, because I know a few people were curious, what is the IBO? You mentioned and you tweeted it's referencing the ICO initial coin offering. So what will be the initial blocklet offering?
I think the concept of IBO is actually coming from the ICO, right? So honestly, I always believe that ICO is one of the most innovative things that blockchain and tokenization take to this world. Unfortunately, a lot of the new concept, a lot of great concept in the history, right? So they usually, get taken advantage by some bad actors. And some of them, unfortunately, even destroyed the whole concept, right? So I think ICO is one of them. So ICO was once a great concept, and a lot of the great project take advantage of that to make that move forward. But also, a lot more people just abuse this and turn that into a disasters, right? So IBO is something that I'm thinking, considering to kind of take the concept of the ICO to kind of combine that into how to build a new application, right? Because the ICO's concept, the problem of the ICO is there's no way for you to tracking the progress, and there's no way for everything is basically based on the commitment, right? But with the blocklet, and imagine, for example, if you somebody have an idea, they can have the idea uh, in the on the blockchain and let the people contribute to the idea, and each of those contributions can be issued as a tokenized, and then they can raise a fund like crowdsourcing, raise a fund, and for whoever contributed it, either the fund or contributed the talent or contributed their whatever they can help to for the project, they all be get tokenized, and then eventually when they eventually build the application, so the applications, on the store and application, how many users, how many revenues generated on the application, they can all tracked on the blockchain. So that makes the whole kind of tokenization of this kind of contribution to build a new application be a realistic thing. So that's what I'm thinking. So this concept, this idea has been there for many years, but I think okay, this is not doable because tokenization is kind of like a crime for the government, and even you. So we just keep there as push as idea, and we never do anything. But I think once American new kind of a framework for tokenization, token issuing becoming a reality, I think we can definitely reactivate this idea. And we have experienced all those kind of crazy ages of the ICO and the crazy ages of getting locked down, and see all those kind of how scammers doing, how the bad actors are doing, and how the company who are not scammer who are doing, and potentially we can adopt those kind of idea into this. So yeah, so we're closely looking into this, and once it's become more clear, we're definitely going to open up the tokenization on the blocklet creating um, in on our block platform. And yeah, so
Sick.
imagine in that day, so any blocklet you creating is can be tokenized, and any of those contributors, from the people who contributed into your idea, people who can contribute to uh, the funding for you to build, the people who can contribute. They probably some of them they don't have the funding, but they have skills, they have knowledge, they can help you and after you created applications, people who can help you to marketing, help to you to reach out to the customers, help you do sales and marketing, they can all be tokenized, right? So this is a real proof of work, proof that you actually contributed to that, and the value is actually from the customer because you have application, you eventually the customer, you have a real customer generated revenue, customer paid the money, and those money based on the based on the tokenization of the ownership of the rate of those kind of who contribute what, it can redistribute it, this revenue back to anybody who contributes to this. This is going to be very exciting. This is completely changed how people work, how the things was created. So I think this is revolutionary. Honestly, this is not the vision, new vision we invited. This is the vision when ICO age, people painting this future, right? In the
Mhm.
future, it's basically like a new way to capitalize the whole things. But unfortunately, it didn't turn out to be the reality. I hope the IBO can take some of the good ideas and a good practice from there, and ideally, the new administration going to have the new legal framework, and then we can also do this legally.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Using kind of the past to know or to understand, okay, let's not do that. Matched with the new administration, hopefully we can now figure out what we can do because they're going to give clear regulations. But I really feel like, in the sense of the IBO, because when I read it, you were mentioning that it's represented as like an NFT instead of just specifically a token. And I feel like a part of the ICO's demise was because everyone kept looking at the tokens like, oh, I'm trading a stock, and they weren't really recognizing it as, no, I've donated some value in the hopes of into the future using the share or turning this into some, you could say, I feel like the ICO was almost set to fail because it was too speculative by nature. While the IBO, you guys recognize like, okay, instead of basic tokens where you watch a price feed, you have NFTs, but you could still track these NFTs and distribute wealth to them, distribute money to them if this blocklet is starting to make money. So that makes total sense. Vinny, literally, I got the blocklet store going for D-Bros. Vinny published a blocklet in it. I sent him 10 ABT and it automatically split it and sent him 9 and then sent the store 1. And I didn't
Yeah.
even mean for it to do that. But when I saw it, I was like, this is what Robert's talking about. It's in the system, it's ready to be used, but we haven't yet built it or seen it in its full beauty. With that being said, we got a minute and 52 seconds left. So, what is the last thing you'd like to close out and say to the ArcBlock community? And we'll wrap it up with that.
Yeah, I would have, first of all, I would have thanks for the community for always supporting with us. And I believe, in the crypto space that, being our blog, being the way that we doing things in our blog is usually we're going to get a lot of troubles because people think, why you are not boosting your token price? But we're building and people are thinking, okay, you're just a kind of a building useless bullshit, right? But I think this is totally different for our blog community. I really appreciate that. I when I read those tweets and people are encouraging us and give us feedback, I really it's really kind of encouraged us to keep doing the right things. So yeah, so I just want to show my appreciation and thanks for you, Vaso, and the whole community for supporting. We're moving forward.